Today's lesson is the review for your quiz 3-1. This quiz is going to be over lesson 3.1 and 3.2. The two questions that you're going to see from 3.1 are going to look like this first question here. You're going to be asked to graph a function, an absolute value function, and it's also going to say this. Oops. Hold on a second, and label the increasing and decreasing parts. So it's going to ask you to graph it, label the increasing and decreasing parts. Let me go ahead and add that in there. There we go. Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make sure that you know the vertex. So even though the domain is the first question, you want to go here first. So this is the first thing that you should do. Based on your equation right here, remember you can say it's negative a x minus h plus k. This is your vertex form. Remember this number h and this number k are your vertex. So I know my vertex should be the ordered pair h comma k. I know that that's what it should be. So from here, 2 is my h, but I also have to take into account that plus sign. Now remember, h is tricky. And then 3, but I also have to take into account the plus sign. So my vertex is going to be the ordered pair. I know k is 3 for sure because k does not try to trick me, but h is trying to trick me. And the reason h is trying to trick me is because of this minus right here. For that minus to turn to a plus in the purple, it would have to be a negative 2. So just be careful with h. You can go ahead and now graph that point. There it is. Now, I'm going to go ahead and use my calculator to get myself some other points. Let's see. I would try negative, we've got negative 2 for the vertex. So let's try negative 1. Negative 1 plus 2 is 1. Negative 4 times the absolute value of 1 is negative 4 plus 3. I would have 1 and negative 1 as an ordered pair. Remember, you do have your axis of symmetry, so you do know that the axis of symmetry is here. Remember, I'm not asking you in this question to graph it, but what is helpful is to know that it's 1 here, so there's also a point over there on the other side. So that's where the axis of symmetry is going to come in helpful. I'll make it a little quick purple line right here, so that you can see how I'm counting. I'm going to go ahead and put 0 in as my next x value. 0 plus 2 is 2. The absolute value of 2 is 2. Negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. Negative 8 plus 3 is negative 5. So I'm going to have 0 and negative 5 as my next point. It is 1, 2 away, so that's 1, 2 away on the other side. There's my other point. And there's my graph. I just needed to get a couple of them on either side. Okay, there we go. Remember that your domain are your x values. So let's go ahead and grab our blue. Remember, these are your x values. You're looking at your graph here along the x-axis. Remember, this side over here is the positive infinity, and this side over here is the negative infinity. If you pull your vertex down to the axis, you want to make sure you ask yourself, what's the left side doing? Well, this arrow says right here that it's never going to stop, so it's going to go in this direction, and the number I would use is negative infinity. The right side of my graph is next. It's never going to stop as well, so it's going to look like this when it's smushed along the x-axis. Because of the arrow, I'm using positive infinity. So I would write it just like this. All right, next we're going to go ahead and do our range. There we go. This is our y values. There we go. Remember, for the range, you need the y value of the vertex. So I know that 3 is going to be in my range value, but what I need is it going on the y-axis, or is my graph pointing towards positive infinity, or is my graph pointing towards negative infinity? Look at the arrows. They're going to point right at one of the infinities. Look at that. It's pointing right at it. So I want to use negative infinity, and I want to use the y value from the vertex. Negative infinity always goes first. Take a look at how you wrote it right here. This one is always first. This one is always second. Always, always, always. And then we're going to put the 3 from the vertex. Remember, infinity always gets a parentheses. And because the vertex is part of our graph, we haven't had any restrictions. 3 is going to get a bracket. The last question you're going to get asked here is the vertex a min or a max? You're simply going to look here at your vertex and ask yourself, is the graph above it or below it? Where's my graph? Well, this graph is below, so this makes it a maximum. That vertex is the highest point. I did forget one thing. I did forget to label my increasing and decreasing parts. Don't forget. Don't forget before you move on. Remember, when we label increasing and decreasing, we read our graph from the left to the right side. We start at the arrow on the left side. Remember, the arrow is not showing direction at this point. It is just showing us where to start. That arrow truly just means that the graph continues in this way until it cannot any longer. So start at the arrow and go to the vertex. I'm going up. Up starts with the letter I, so I'm going to say, or sorry, up starts with the letter U, so I'm going to pick increasing because it starts with a vowel as well. So I'm just going to write that word right there. At the vertex, my graph is taking a turn and it goes downward. Down and decreasing start with the same letter, D, so I'm going to go ahead and put decreasing here. So remember, it's up, U, and I, they're both vowels, and down and D start with the same letter. So I would just write decreasing right here. And you're just going to have 2 of those to do on your assignment. The other 3 questions are going to look like 2 and 3. So you're going to just have to solve an absolute value for me. Remember that when we solve an absolute value, we need to make sure that the quantity inside the absolute value is alone. So I cannot have any kind of number here in the front or here between the absolute value and the equal sign. Also, once my absolute value looks like this number on this side cannot be negative. So I just have to make sure that 9 is not negative. It's not. So here we go. I'm going to take the 6x minus 3 and I'm going to set it equal to 9. And then I'm going to take the 6x minus 3 and I'm going to set it equal to negative 9. And I'm just going to go ahead and solve both of these equations for the variable x. I'm going to go ahead and add 3, which gives me 6x equals 12. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the 6 by dividing by 6. X equals 2. There's my first answer. And now I'm going to go ahead and solve the second equation in the same way. Notice I'm adding 3 again, but negative 9 plus 3 is a different number. It is negative 6. And in the same way, to get rid of that 6, I'm going to divide by 6. Negative 1. For my last one, what I notice here is as I make this a different color is I notice that I have a 4 in the front. And then I also notice that I have a minus 7 in the back. One of the other things that I also notice is that it is equal to a negative 9. Now be careful because you saw in your assignment in 3.2 that It could be equal to a negative right here, but then it disappears, right? We multiplied by a negative 10 times negative 7, and we got positive 70. We divided a negative by a negative, and we got a positive. So just be careful. What you have to do is remember you're thinking of this like that equation. And so what you want to do is you want to get that x alone. Remember that that x is really the purple absolute value of x plus 7. So the first thing I would do is add the 7 to the other side. Negative 9 plus 7, give me just a sec here, would be negative 2. I still don't have the absolute value by itself. I have to get rid of the 4. So what I can think of this is as 4 times x equals negative 2. How would I get rid of that pink 4? Well, I would divide by 4. Absolute value of x plus 7. I put that in my calculator and I get negative 1/2. Now is the point where I have to make my decision. Do I do this? Can I split it and I have two answers like this, two problems to solve? Or is my answer no solution? How do I know? Well, I'm going to look at this number right here. This number right here is negative, so my answer for this one would be no solution. Good luck on your quiz, guys.